Joining me this evening to discuss the election and misinformation is Elon alum and Politifact reporter Maria Ramirez Uribe. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So as a professional fact checker, what kinds of trends and patterns are you seeing in this year's election?
Yes, I think with misinformation, generally we often see kind of two types of misinformation. You see the ones that are completely made up, there's no basis of fact, and then there's the misinformation that comes from somewhere. I'm an immigration reporter specifically, and that's what I focus on with fact checking. And so we see a lot of data mischaracterization. So people will take a number that exists either given by the government or some sort of real statistic and figure, and they'll twist it and turn it and mischaracterize it to the point where it's now completely false, but it came from somewhere.
And what do you think the motivation behind that misinformation is?
You know, usually we say with misinformation, you're trying to evoke a response and kind of change the perception that people have of reality. And so there's misinformation, which is when people are unknowingly spreading false or misleading information. And then there's disinformation when people know what they're spreading is wrong, is false, and they're kind of doing it with a malicious intent. And in that case, you're really trying to change people's perception.
And looking broadly, what are those big negative impacts you see from misinformation on the election?
You know, I think there's a lot of mistrust in the way our elections work, and I think that was really built out during the 2020 election with a lot of the misinformation around alleged fraud, which did not happen during the 2020 election. And so I think we're starting to see that again. We're starting to see the planting of seeds that this election could also have some sort of unreal fraud. And I think anytime you're casting that level of doubt on a country's institutions, you're putting democracy at risk.
And for people who are unfamiliar with Politifact or have not used it, what are some tips you would give them in using that resource when it comes to finding information on candidates or just the election in general?
Yeah, I think generally anytime you're scrolling on social media, you're listening to a candidate speak and they say something that makes you question whether or not it's real, or maybe it sounds really exciting or really frightening, it evokes that kind of big reaction in you. You should probably stop and Google it and research it. You can go to our site specifically and kind of find that real information. But I think it's just important to sort of take a second, really think through and research the facts, and then learn about the topic before you reshare it or tell somebody else about it.
Absolutely. And thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
If you would like to hear more from Maria, she will be speaking about her work at Politifact as part of Elon Alumni Voices speaker series.